Welcome back to the Good, the Bad and the Ugly podcast with me, Tony Morell. This week's special guest is Nick Conn, a man who has lived through the highs and lows of addiction, redemption and resilience. From getting hooked on drugs while serving as a police officer to moving to Austria and getting caught up in a shocking scam. Nick's journey is nothing short of extraordinary. This is a raw and powerful conversation. Thanks for listening and watching this episode.
When I took it for the first time, I was like, wow, this is how I'm supposed to feel. So I've got and called him an ambulance, and whilst the ambulance is on the way, I've taken his wallet and it had cocaine in it, money in it, and I was doing this cocaine until I looked at myself and thought, what have you become?
Welcome to the Good, the Bad and the Ugly podcast with me, Tony Morell. This week's special guest is Nick Conn. Really looking forward to sharing the Good, the Bad and the Ugly, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
Nice one for coming, mate. Thank you for your hospitality.
Pleasure.
We've dashed across London to finally nail you down. I know it's been a bit of a but you're a very busy man, and I appreciate you giving your time up, family life and stuff like that. So,
likewise, I appreciate your persistence.
No, thank you very much. No, appreciate it. So, Nick, I know you've got a powerful story, one that I jumped on straight away. I come across you on YouTube and stuff, and I just thought, you know what, that guy, wow, he's got a story and a half. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to find this man and I'm going to try and get him on the podcast, and I did. So, Nick, and thank you once again for giving your time up. I just want to start from where you grew up, where you're from, family life and school life was like.
Yeah, so I think I grew up locally, so sort of Hertfordshire way, which is where we are now. I never had a bad childhood. I had a great childhood. There was nothing that sticks in my mind about blaming things or where my rest of my story went. Yeah. I had a great childhood. Loving parents, a brother, everything was great. Grammar school education,
good times.
It was all good. Although when you're at school, you don't realise how lucky you got it, but it was easy back then, wasn't it?
Yeah. School like for you? School good? School
was good. I only found out actually 6 years ago that I've got ADHD, and I didn't know back then. In those days, you're just a little shit.
You're a naughty kid.
So, you're not paying attention or whatever the case may be. But, times have evolved, thankfully. But back then, I struggled at school, but academically. But, no, it was all fine. It was all fine.
You didn't do any sports, any like football, rugby, anything like that?
I used to do a bit of rugby. I was a hooker, but got arrested for it. No. Did a bit of rugby, played football, but no, I was never really that good at anything, if I'm honest. Yeah, I was never really good.
So from school, do you know, what was there, any like college, uni and anything like that, or?
No, I think from then I kind of went on to, rather than going for sixth form, I went to, I don't know if you remember Lum Poly. Do you remember Lum Poly?
Was it travel agents?
Travel agents, yeah. Because they were doing an MVQ in travel services. So I thought, well, I can go and get my qualification.
Go and see the world.
Unfortunately, you don't really get to see it that much, but you were getting paid.
Oh, right, okay.
Which I thought, better than school. You're not getting paid at school. It's a bit of real life experience, and I did that for a couple of years and really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So did you not get to travel then?
No.
Not when really. You mentioned Lum Poly, I remember the adverts on the telly and stuff like
Just
that.
Just get away, I think it was, get away.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they do a couple of what they call educationals where they send you to places, but there was nowhere exotic.
Nowhere exotic, no.
No.
So from Lum Poly, where did you end up?
So from Lum Poly, it was kind of biding time because I applied to be in the police, and the application took quite a long time.
Process and stuff.
So I was kind of working at the Hilton and doing conference and banqueting and other little jobs like that. And eventually I got accepted into the police, which was a bit of a process, because one of the things that annoys me is when someone asks my opinion on something and then disagrees with me. It drives me mad, right? Don't ask my opinion. Right. And I remember in the interview, there was a superintendent, a sergeant, I think an inspector, all sitting the other side of the table, and they asked, what's my opinion on women police officers? And I said, I don't see a problem. I said, women are much better at dealing with certain things than men, and men are better than dealing at things with women. It makes us all equal, right? I said, and plus, if a situation's escalated, male to male can escalate more, whereas a woman can de-escalate
Diffuse it.
and diffuse it. So, and then they came back with, yeah, but women aren't as strong as men and this, that, and I'm like, and I'm starting to get annoyed now. And they were saying, no, you're wrong. And I'm like, but don't ask my opinion. I thought, when I walked out, I thought, I'm definitely not got this. But apparently they loved it because they're looking for people that stick to what they say.
Yeah, yeah.
And can't be kind of their mind changed. So that kind of worked out, luckily.
Do you think that was like the process, what they'd done? Do you think that was like a test, or do you
I think so. I think they wanted to see who could be easily persuaded.
To agree? Oh, you know, like you're saying, oh, right, okay, yeah, I do agree.
But it
with
turns out they did something that really annoys me. So, so I wasn't changing my mind there.
Yeah, so that was a bit of my process, but you obviously got the job.
Got the job, and I started. When you're training, you train in Hendon, it was called the Peel Centre. I'm not sure if it's there so much now. And you live there for 18 weeks. And it's a very interesting process, but it's very intense. And they test you in 3 different areas. They have one which is called a KEE, which stands for like a knowledge evaluation exercise, and SEE, which is a skills evaluation exercise, and then like forms, right? So the reason why this was quite interesting is because you've got to learn what you call the white notes, all the law effectively.
Yeah.
And then they want to see you put that in action. So you're being tested in the law with your KE tests, the knowledge ones. Then you want to see you put it in action in the skills one. So they've got this like fake village. It's actually quite cool. And in this hall, like this huge building, they've got different rooms, and behind each room is a theme. So they've got it kitted out as a newsagent. In one, they've got one that's got like a broken down car inside this room, right? And you've turned up at whatever, and then you've got something else. And then you've got senior police officers who are further in their training that are the actors in that situation. So you get put at a door, you don't know what's behind the door, and you get told to go in, and you've got to deal with whatever's presented to you.
It's put on you straight away.
Put on you straight away. So you've got to ask questions, find out what's
They've got
going
a role
on.
play sort of thing, innit?
Role play. So you've got to find out and you've got an examiner sitting in the corner, you've got to find out what's going on, you've got to apply the law to it, and you've got to deal with it. It's a good way of training.
It must have been intense though, like you say, and to remember everything. And
it's hard. And the
pressure.
Thing is, the pressure's massive, and you've got to get like 80% from what I recall every week, or you're out. And I was never good in those situations, not being with undiagnosed ADHD, and I was staying up late at night. It wasn't going in, just wasn't sinking in, and I got introduced to cocaine. And
was that early on?
That was early on, whilst I was training, and I got introduced to it by someone close to me. And cut a long story short, when I took it for the first time, I was like, wow, this is how I'm supposed to feel, right? This is how I'm supposed to feel. And this is not an advert for cocaine, by the way.
It's just your story though, you know what I mean?
And all these feelings, this way that I always wanted to feel, it's like, that's how I've always wanted to feel. And I felt confident, and I always suffered with low self-esteem and insecurity. So when I took this cocaine, it just all went, and it was replaced with this like euphoria, this feeling that I've always strived for. And instantly I knew straight away that this is going to be an issue. But I started taking it at the police training centre. I had my dealers turning up outside the training centre, and I would come out and meet them and bring it in, because it's all security, you can't get in.
Was it not one of them where you were out and you'd gone for the night out or something or whatever? And
they came later on, but whilst you're training, it was only in Hendon. I was living in Bushy at the time, so the difference is like 20 minutes. So, but a lot of the other recruits come from Merseyside, come from Lincolnshire, because it's quite hard to get into those forces.
Yeah.
So they go into the Met, do 2 years, and then they transfer to their local force. So you've got all these people staying in Hendon that have no one, and on the weekends you go out, and obviously because I live local, I knew where to go, and we'd go out and what have you. But certainly I'd be in my room doing cocaine, and by myself. That's what my using began like. It wasn't the partying, it wasn't
it was just
the clubs, it
just,
wasn't
just the buzz to make you feel better and stuff.
I just felt better. And then what I didn't realise, which came unexpectedly, was I started flying through my exams. I was retaining all that information. I was retaining everything. It was all going in. I was flying through the exams, getting 90, 93, 95%. And I was like, I had no problems. I was 18. I was on 26 grand a year, which back then was incredible and still is good.
Yeah, it's decent money.
Still good money. I lived with my family when I wasn't there. So I had no mortgage. I had no bills. I had nothing. Like,
no overheads.
No overheads. What's the problem? There is no problem. And so it was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself.
So obviously you've been introduced to cocaine. You know, are you butting into a station in London, or when you passed and all that? You know?
So what you do is you give your top 3 locations.
Yeah.
And my top one was Kentish Town, because Kentish Town's next to Camden. It's a rough area, or certainly it's quite trendy now, but back then it was a very rough area. And it was the closest to where I lived that was in that, so it was the closest to home.
Yeah.
But roughest.
But did you not think about being close to home and being a police officer? Did that not worry you? Or
I couldn't, because where I was Hertfordshire, which is a different county, a different force. Okay. So it would have become under Hertfordshire Police. So this was the closest within the Metropolitan Police that I could be to home, if that makes sense. And it was a rough area. So it was a busy area, and it's kind of what you want. To
get you through your shifts and whatever, but you don't know what one day from the other's going to be like.
No. And it was bad. I mean, you meet some incredible people, but there was a lot of, you think of the worst thing you've seen police deal with, like the worst thing you've seen, and that's probably what they deal with daily. And I remember my first dead body, which was embarrassing from my side, if I'm honest, because I'm not good with that. Yeah. And it was a simple thing. A lady died at home in bed, very innocent.
Natural causes or something.
All natural causes. And you get trained in the process of what you got to do, and you got to remove the jewellery before the coroners take her, and this, that, and the other. And she was like that. And I'm trying to get the rings off, and rigor mortis set in, so I've got to like that to try and get it, and my stomach's like that. And I've got the London ambulance service there, and a doctor that pronounced her dead, right? And then I've pulled to get her ear in like that, and she's gone, shit myself. And I'm going, I thought you said she's fucking dead. I thought you said she's dead. And they're wetting themselves. Well, it was trapped air, or whatever it was. Yeah. Well, my heart jumped out. So that was my first experience of a dead body, which was good in comparison to some other people's experience, but it scared the life out of me. Yes.
I was going to say, other experiences which you would have endured, during your time, what one stand out for you where, was really scary, with situations? Or
There was two. There was one which was another dead body, which was not long after that, which was the worst you could possibly, I think, imagine. So it was a family in Australia that they couldn't get hold of their mum, and they were really worried. So muggings here happened to be on foot patrol when the call came through to do a welfare check, and I was right near where we had to go. So I thought, God dear. And it was a council building, and it was like steel doors. So I've said, yeah, I'll go. And I knocked on the door, no answer, right? I knocked on the neighbour's door, said, have you seen her? She said, no, I haven't seen her. I haven't seen her in a long time. I look through the window, there's a load of blue bottle flies. I thought, oh no. So I've opened up the letterbox to see if there's post and everything, and there was a pile of post, and this smell just came through. Oh. And I thought, oh no, this isn't going to be good. So I've gone to kick the door and not realise it was like steel, and almost broke my foot. So we had to call the fire brigade to come and remove the door. And I'm looking for this elderly white lady, and I've walked into this flat, and I've looked right into the bedroom and just thought, no, carried on going into the lounge. I thought, hold on, what did I just see? And it was this black decayed body, is the only way I can, that was sunk into the mattress. And there's a process, of course, that you have to follow. And I can't start rummaging around everything in case it's a suspicious scene. So you have to lift the body to make sure there's no knife in the back or anything. Just before you start trampling a potential scene.
Crime scene, yeah.
So lift the body, and there's thousands of maggots and all of that, and it was horrible.
How long had you been there?
God knows, weeks.
Ah,
Weeks. Yeah, it was horrible. So so there was that, and there was another time which really stood out, which was a really scary time for me, which was I arrested someone for something, shoplifting or something. And the way Kentish Town Police Station is you've got your main building, then you've got like a courtyard, and then you've got another building, which is where the custody suite is. And I checked in the prisoner, and then walking back through, and I heard screaming. So I ran out, and it's next door to like a snooker and pool club. And I thought, what is it? So I ran out, gone to see what it is, and there was a guy covered head to toe in blood. And I ran upstairs, which was a stupid thing to do. And it was like a scene out of a film. Everyone's hitting each other with snooker. It was chaotic. But because it was my first experience in this sort of situation, I'm spraying anyone and hitting anyone that's coming towards me, but didn't realise I'm also blocking the exit.
so you get out.
Anyone trying to get out, in my eyes, is trying to attack me. So I'm hitting everyone. I've called for assistance, and eventually loads of support came. But yeah, that was terrifying.
And 2 incidents stood out. So obviously the cocaine was this getting a grip of you by then? It was like, was it sort of, you were taking it on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I didn't like cocaine. I just really liked the smell of it.
Yeah,
So,
I think a lot of people say the same thing.
so cocaine, it started escalating because initially I had no financial issues. Like I was saying, I had no overheads. But then over time, the debts start coming and the credit cards start coming and the loans start coming. And it's one excuse after the other, right? So you're looking to blame it on
Pay Peter to pay Paul and all that.
other things and what have you. And it just started accumulating, and it went on for quite some time, and I ended up having to leave the police due to an incident which I can't discuss.
Yeah.
But
How much was you doing in a day? How much cocaine were you sniffing a day?
at that stage, probably about 2 or 3 grams a day. It ended up with 8 grams a day towards the end of my using, which was on it from the morning or constantly.
And you're working away as well. You just feel...
Yeah, and I know a lot of the comments to this video will be like, scum, because I've seen all of this.
Yeah.
Like, police officer, you're supposed to be protected, and I appreciate that, and and in my head, I was never bent at work, right? So I was never taking anything off anyone or
stitching anyone off.
Doing anything like that. It was...
You had a problem, Nick.
I had a problem.
Yeah.
And so I was doing what I was doing secretly whilst I was at work, and outside of work doing what I use. And I'm not a bully or, I don't hurt people. I just wanted to keep myself to myself and use. And like I said, there will be comments saying scum because you're a police officer, this, that, and the other. You shouldn't be doing that, and I shouldn't have. And the fact is, what's important to really get across is we're all human, and we're all susceptible to this. No one's immune, and it's a really important. Which is why I talk about it, because at first I was ashamed, and I talk about this a lot because it's important to understand that anyone can suffer here, regardless of what job you do.
It's easy to get sucked in, Nick.
Easy.
People are addicted to alcohol. People are addicted to drugs. People are addicted to gambling.
Yeah.
There's different addictions, and everyone's got an addiction of some sort.
And the fact is, the drugs, the alcohol, they're not somebody's problem. They're somebody's solution. Right? The problem's underlining whatever issue. Could be trauma, could be all sorts of things going on. Self-esteem, in my case.
Yeah.
And for me, when I took it, it was it was medicinal. Effectively, it did for me what I couldn't do for myself. So everyone has their reasons, and that's the long and the short of it. Is whether people buy that or not.
Was it true that sometimes the dealers were leaving the drugs in the exhaust and stuff like that? And
yeah, because certainly if I was on an early shift, which
had none
was
left.
6 till 2 or whatever, and I've got to leave at like 5 o'clock to get to work, none of the dealers were awake or or around
still
to
out
deal with
working.
it. They're not still out working. It's now past that time. So I was like, leave it in your exhaust of your car, and I'll come and collect it from your exhaust. And Yeah, crazy.
Some of the lengths that you went to obviously to get what you wanted. You know what I mean? It was. So, did you move? You know, from the police, did you move to Austria? Is that correct?
Yeah, so I had to leave the police, and then as I did sign up kind of mundane jobs, and for me, that one of the lowest things you can do is steal. Right, I find stealing like a really
To everyone's what's the name, isn't it? You know?
and I did various different jobs, and I did some jobs in an estate agency, and then I found out now I need money.
Yeah.
Right.
You're desperate.
I need money. And so I remember I kind of figured out how I could get away with taking stuff from people's houses without being identified. And so there was properties that had multiple agencies. So there could be 6 agents that have access to this property, and we've all got a key. So I would book out that I'm going to another property, but take the key and go to that property. So there was no record of me going, and take cameras or this, that, and the other, and sell those at cash converters. And for me, I was like, what are you becoming? Like, I've got a loving family. You know, this isn't.
Were they aware of you, like, you know, at the time?
They probably had their suspicions, and then I tell them I've stopped if it got found out at some point. And but yeah, they didn't know how to deal. They know how to deal with this. So so then eventually the debt just built up, and it was now to a point where I couldn't pay it. I mean, but it was 2-3 grand, but for me back at that time,
It's still a lot of money, mate.
to me back at that time, it was an impossible task to be able to come up with that. And then I saw a job for TUI, you know, TUI,
Yeah, too, yeah.
and which was a snowboard rep.
And you're banging to your snowboard, aren't you?
I love snowboarding. So I thought, that's it. They give you accommodation, they give you a salary. I'm in the middle of the mountains, never going to find any gear there, right? Let's get away.
Yeah.
And I remember going to Camden, and they put on a coach from Camden, and the coach went, and I remember that day because I had about 4 different dealers that I owed money to, and all of those calls were coming in on that day. And I remember getting on that coach, turning the phone off, and it was like freedom, and got away. And now I'm in the middle of the mountains, and within a day I found the only dealer.
You found someone out
Found
there.
the only dealer. And then the scam started because we would have to pick people up from the airport and take them to the resort. So I'm on the coach, you know, that prat that's on the phone, on the microphone. Welcome to. I was that prat, right? And I'd welcome everyone to Austria, and then as we're getting closer, I'd say it's Austrian tradition to tip the driver, and I'll wait outside with a carrier bag. And the drivers didn't speak a word of English. So I'm waiting with a carrier bag, people are putting in €1-2 at a time. There's 50, 60 odd people on the coach, and that was paying for my gear. So I'm doing that sort of once, twice, quite a few times a week.
You got a couple of £100, haven't you?
It was making good money. So that was funding my habit, and I'd never really been a drinker, but I started drinking quite a bit more whilst I was out there as well. But there was some good times there.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how in my head I thought, if I can get away from where I am, the problem will go. But what I didn't realise is the problem's in my head, and wherever I go, my head's coming with me.
It's within yourself, isn't it?
So once again, got into drama out there as well, with clubs, bars that I owed money to, that I ended up building up tabs with, dealers, the dealer, who ended up building a tab with. And that started coming, it was like a pattern, because towards the end of the season, the last day when they were putting a coach on to send us back, people started coming to knock on my door, so I wasn't answering the door.
You were wanting the money, basically.
They wanting their money, and it was just a constant pattern. And that season came to an end after about 6 months or whatever it was, and I came back, and same drama,
Same rigmarole.
same, and I did another geographical, which was to Berlin. So a company called MRI, who was a scam, which none of us knew, not a scan, they were a scam. McAntony Realty International. And it was an Irish guy called Darragh McAntony, and they sponsored, I think, Portsmouth or one of the football clubs. And they give you money, they give you a salary, give you accommodation and what have you, but they train you in Marbella, and then they put you where they feel you're best suited. And some people got the Caribbean, some people got like Mexico.
And what was the training? What was you actually doing?
So they're teaching you the spiel, right? So the spiel was, because we would pick up people from the airport, they'd go and exhibit at like property exhibitions in Ireland or whatever, and these people that are interested in buying property abroad would have to show that they've got the money. And then if they did, MRI would pay for their flights and accommodation. Someone like me would pick them up, give them a tour of Berlin and the spiel.
The spiel.
So the spiel. So the spiel was Angela Merkel, who's the Chancellor of Germany. She's doing what Maggie Thatcher did, I think, from what I can recall. So Berlin, or Germany maybe, is very asset rich but cash poor. So they were selling off these properties to get money. And in Berlin, it's like in the UK, we're brought up to try and buy a property, right? But in Berlin, it's not. You rent, and you pass down that rental in your inheritance to your children. So you're getting long-term tenants paying a very high yield. The properties in like Charlottenburg, which is like equivalent to Knightsbridge, were stunning. Like stunning. Like 4-bedroom mansion houses, like they're apartments, but they're just beautiful, high ceilings, really nicely done. And they were like 60,000 euros. So they were cheap, very cheap. The rental income was great. So it was a no-brainer from an investment purpose. And then when you're touring them around Berlin, which is, I think, the second largest European city or something, you can see how cool Berlin is.
It's a lovely place.
You're sold.
So you're selling them down the river, really, aren't you? I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a lovely city, but it's also, it's not what you're telling them, really.
There's a whole thing that goes on there.
What unfolded from there?
So when I went out there, we met, we had a delayed team night out because we were waiting on new arrivals that were delayed coming out for people joining the team. And we went to an area called Hackescher Markt, which is like in East Berlin. It's like the equivalent to Camden, very kind of
nice. It's just
funky, cool, like a bit hippie-ish sort of. And there was a club there called AM to PM, and someone or one of us, it was either me or someone, one of us blagged us into the VIP area, and there was a guy sitting on the table next to us with some women, and I ended up chatting to him. I asked if he knew where I could get any cocaine, and about it felt like a minute later, it could have been 10, 15, who knows. But one of the waiters or something came over in an envelope and said, go to the toilet, and there was a few grams of cocaine in there, like 2 or 3, and ended up speaking to the girls that he was with him. It turns out this guy owns brothels across Berlin, Albanian guy, quite heavily involved with a few things, but brothels out there are legal. Kind of a whole long story. They ran an operation, which is actually a very smart operation, where over here, like if traders or whatever go out, they go to like a strip club maybe, and they might use the company cards, and they treat their whoever
clients and whatever.
Well, over there they go to a brothel, right? Because they're kind of like, they're like bars as well, and then you can go downstairs depending on the layout of the place, and there's rooms, and the girls are dancing on a pole, and you pick who you want. Right. So, but they were selling cocaine at like 100 euros a gram, which is a lot of money, but over the counter basically, where these people can pay on credit cards for services. So it's all going through legal, effectively, through their system, and they were printing money. And obviously I naturally gravitated a lot towards them because
you were obviously cocaine fully in.
Cocaine, and with that you want the
You want more.
seediness
You
that
want
comes
more,
with
yeah,
it as
yeah.
well. And I started like hanging around there a lot, and it started out with, because they own quite a few, one brothel might have been busier than another, so they were like, Nick, can you help us and take some of the girls over from this one to another one? I'm like, sure. And they give you gear for it, right?
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
And it was great, and that went on for quite long time, to the point where this gear that I was being given for the jobs that I was doing, and I was very reliable because, like I say, this was a very organized thing that they had going, and they rely on people like me.
They prey on people.
That's a better word.
They prey
on people like me, because if you ask me, if I know I'm going to get gear and they say, Nick, be there in 5 minutes,
You're there.
to the point that they even gave me the nickname, which, if I can remember, it was Bas Minuta, something like that, which in Albania means 5 minutes. Because whenever I said, can I come and get some gear, they said, oh, come in over like an hour, whatever. I'm like, no, 5 minutes. I'll be there in 5 minutes, 5 minutes, always 5 minutes, 5 minutes. So I ended up getting the nickname Bas Minuta, or Bas Minuti, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so where was I going with that?
The gear, the stuff, the coke that they were giving you.
All of that for doing these jobs wasn't for doing the jobs, which I thought was for doing the jobs. There was a tab being built
on your head.
And that went on for quite some time. And then it turned out that I'd owed them sort of 20,000 euros, and I was doing 8 grams a day.
Hanging around these places and all that.
And I can't pay
20 grand.
It's impossible. And it was probably one of the scariest moments, because these guys were very unpredictable. And I didn't see a huge amount, but I saw there was one particular time where one of them, a guy called, I can't remember what I called him in my book because we changed all the names, but his name was Arta. And he had his arm around someone, they were laughing and joking, and he started stabbing him with a fork, right? And I don't know what was more intimidating, the fact that how he could just switch that complete, and there are plenty of times where he's got his arm around me, and it's fucking terrifying.
But there was something that you said to me before, when just off camera, that under the eyes,
black eyes. It was like a great white shark, like black eyes. Just there's nothing. There's no emotion. There's just nothing.
With some serious people.
Seriously, and thankfully, you know, I was no one. You know, I was no one.
You're not a gangster.
I'm not a gangster, right? I was no one. I was just someone that just wanted cocaine. That's all I wanted. But weirdly, they became like a father figure in a weird way, because I had no one out there and I was being looked after.
Well, you thought you were being looked
after. I thought I was being looked after. So when I got hit with this bill, I was like, okay, I'll sort that out. And and at the same time, I lost my job. And the worst thing about losing my job is because I asked someone at work if they could get me cocaine. This company's a scam, and they fired me for doing drugs, which is the worst thing. That, you know, I think it's just embarrassing, right? So with that came the accommodation. So I lost my accommodation immediately. I had nothing.
Was you obviously were homeless? Did you think to get on your toes? Were you on your toes then?
So I went to Charlottenburg, which, like I said, was the affluent part of West Berlin, so beautiful area. And I remember sitting in the doorway of Gucci, and I say, because it wasn't rock bottom, it could have been Primark, right? But I sat in the doorway of Gucci and I didn't move for a few weeks.
Did you just stay in the doorway?
I was petrified. Like that first night.
Was you like huddled up, you know, hidden, or did you have any money at all to buy food?
I had nothing, maybe a couple of euros, and there was this like little kiosk thing that did these incredible noodles, right, in a tub. Like you can go for different sizes, and it's like these dried onions and noodles and soy sauce and some. It was actually very nice, and you choose chicken or.
Them European countries aren't too.
It was like €1 for like that. It was actually very good value. And then there was a bakery that would get rid of cakes that went off that day that obviously couldn't go, and I'd just go and clear those up, and I survived, and it just went on. But that first night when I didn't know where to go, and I was just sitting there. I was petrified.
What was running through your head, Nick? If you don't, but if you can relay it, what was it like in that doorway? Just thinking these are gonna, because you knew what they were about.
I didn't want to go anywhere where I'd been, because in case they were looking for me. They weren't the type of people that you can say, can we set up a payment plan? There was no way out. And so the time went on, and I remember there was 2 or 3 German guys coming back from a night out, and one of them went to piss on me, and he's got it out, and I hit him in the balls. So I knew what was coming, and they kicked the living daylights out of me. And I remember I woke up that next day, I was covered in blood, and I thought, I'm done. And I
can't carry on like this.
I cannot carry on. And I called my family, and I said, I've got a big drug problem. I've got Albanians after me for a lot of money, and I'm homeless. And they were amazing. Without them, I'd be dead, categorically.
Was you scared, Nick, before you made that call?
I think I've been scared the whole way,
To speak to your family, because I think opening up and saying that there is a problem there, I think a lot of people are scared to make the first step. And do that.
I think I got past the stage. There was nothing more that could scare me than where I was at.
Yeah.
And back then it wasn't so simple, because there wasn't just FaceTime. You can check in with your family and WhatsApp call them. This is 17 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't just, there wasn't that device. So they didn't see the deterioration. So it did come as a shock. And I was telling them how well I was doing the whole time.
You were blagging them.
I wanted them to be proud. But they said, go to a hotel and get them to call me when you're there. So I went to the Hotel Adlon, which is where Michael Jackson hanged his child over the balcony.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And I explained the situation to the reception. They called my family. They paid over the phone with a credit card. Had the longest shower of my life. And they flew me back the next day.
Did you have your passport and all that stuff with you?
I had my passport with me. There was loads of stuff I had to leave out there.
Yeah. I thought your passport might have been, but even because you got on your toes, obviously, they didn't take it off you or anything.
No, I had literally, I think, a rucksack with some bits in, and that was it. Yeah. They flew me back, and we were trying to find a rehab, and we couldn't find a rehab. Couldn't get it on the NHS. All of the kind of rehabs that we were finding were just too expensive. We couldn't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly couldn't. My family couldn't. And it was only through a chance introduction through someone my dad knew. He knew a rehab in Bognor Regis, which is...
Skegness up them ways. Bognor Regis is up there.
Down south.
Oh, right,
down south. And on the south coast. And that's unfortunately shut now, but they were £600 a week or whatever, which
at that time,
in comparison to other rehabs, it's a fraction of the cost. And so I was in there for 3 months, and
3 months at £600 a week.
Yeah, which was remarkably good. My dad kept managing to find more and extending what have you. But it was just freeing, because I felt I was eating properly, I was showering, I was...
Normality.
It was just, there was no outside stress. It was, It was just, but I got really bad advice when I was there, and they said, when I was coming up to leaving, they said that you need to learn to be independent, stop relying on your family. So I said, well, what are you suggesting? They said, you can't live with your family. You need to go and claim benefits and get a flat. And I'd never claimed benefit. I never didn't know how to do that. But fortunately, people I was in rehab did. And so I got a little 1-bed flat, and it was 25 minutes out of the area, and I didn't know anyone. And over time, I ended up relapsing. So my brother had a security company, and I needed extra money. And he said, if you need some jobs, I've got some jobs for you. And he had this club in London, which he had a security contract for. And he said, there's a job there if you want to work. So I did some jobs there. And I thought, it'd be good. I'll meet a nice girl.
Environment and all that. Yeah.
They all like security, right? I meet a nice girl. And there's a lot that he didn't tell me. So it was a gay club, but a fetish gay club as well.
Right, okay.
Right, so there was a black room, which anything and anything goes on. And as security, you got to go and make sure everything's fine.
There's nothing going on. That's
nothing
not
going on
illegal. Like, yeah.
And they don't know your security, so you know, it's a interesting go. But ultimately, they were the nicest people. Like, they were lovely people. There was never any trouble, and it was a good situation. And I remember New Year's Eve. So I'd already been relapsing now, and this New Year's Eve came, and this guy took GHB.
Yeah.
And he fitted, and whilst I've gone and called him an ambulance, and whilst the ambulance is on the way, I've taken his wallet and it had cocaine in it, money in it. And I remember going, this is 11:57 p.m. 2008.
Just before
3 minutes before, 3 minutes before New Year's Eve. And I was doing this cocaine until I looked at myself and thought, what have you become? And like, the guy's having a fit.
ODing or whatever, he's having a fit.
What have you become? And I was looking at myself in the mirror, I was like, that's it.
Did the penny drop then when you'd obviously took that out of his pocket, and the guy's needing,
need help.
He needed, yeah.
Thankfully, he was okay, but that's through that's not for anything.
You'd gone past that where you'd relapsed and stuff like that, and then
it was an opportunity, and anything else, just the selfishness and everything. It was just how low can someone go? And for me, when I saw myself in the mirror and was doing this cocaine, I was like, I'm done, and I threw it.
Did you throw it? Like,
never touched it again since. So I threw myself into the fellowship, Cocaine Anonymous, did whatever I could to start supporting others and giving back. But by doing that, and when I got into recovery, I realised how many other people struggle to find rehab, because none of the rehabs have their prices on them. And in that time of crisis, trying to find what rehab's right, what one's affordable, is impossible. So I just started researching every rehab, what they charge, where they're located, what they detox for, what therapeutic modalities they use, everything, what their CQC ratings are, and just started making an Excel sheet. And over years, that's become one of the largest addiction advisory services, which helps thousands of people.
Is this your company?
This is my company.
Help for Addiction, isn't it?
Help for Addiction, and I'm really proud of that. And it's done remarkable things. But over years of doing that, there were so many people that couldn't go to rehab because they couldn't afford it, because they had children dependent on them, they were a carer for someone, they work, can't take time out, whatever reason. I thought,
there's got to be a way around this.
There's got to be something. There just wasn't options, because there was outpatient places, but the outpatient places were during the whole day. And it's like, well, if you work, that doesn't work. So I set up an online rehab called Rehubs, and that's rehubs.com. And we thought, right, if we're going to do this, we've got to do this right. So we brought in Professor Mark Antonio Spader, who's globally the top 1% cited scientist on addiction in the world. The guy's incredible. London South Bank University. And he designed this program. He's oversees what therapists we take, trains our therapists, supervises our therapists. And the craziest thing about it is a fraction of the cost of rehab, and our outcomes are through the roof. And it's like, so it's always been, how can I make treatment more accessible, adaptable and affordable for people? And it seems to be working. And that's what we've been working on.
You must be so proud, Nick, because to where you were at, and like you say, look, and I can see you very, for what you've done, you're embarrassed, but your story can help so many people out there. And that's why we wanted to get you on the podcast, because I knew a little bit about you, but I didn't know the full thing about you, you know what I mean? And to be honest, it's very, like, when you look at it now, and you are a human, and when people take drugs for trauma, whatever it is, and you yourself openly admitted self-esteem, but when it gets to a point where, like you say, the gentleman with the GHB or whatever it was, when you've done that, and then you've just thought to yourself, what have I become? And then you've just gone, right, I need to turn my life around, and look what you're doing now with like rehabs and stuff like that. It's like, you've got to be proud of yourself, considering to where you were at. You know what I'm saying?
It's an unbelievable journey, and I, even when I say this story, when I was writing my book, the hardest thing was trying to. It was
What's your book called, by the way?
So The Thin White Line is the book, but we've actually just written a new one, because back then there was like a fashion for short, sharp reads, so it was kind of a short, sharp read.
Is it on Amazon and stuff
Amazon.
like that? Yeah, we'll put it in the link in the description and stuff like that below. You know, so
it's all right. It's worth a read. The hardest part of writing that was trying to put it all in order, because it's just one big mess, and it's just, where did this come in? Where did this come in? And it was hard, but yeah, it's a whole lifetime ago now, and it's amazing how, you know, you can hear these things and you see what people do, and it's very easy to judge. Believe me,
of course it is.
Very easy to judge. I'm guilty of it. I judge.
We all do.
You know, but it's really important to understand that anyone's susceptible here, and we've got to look out for each other, because you never know what's going on for someone.
Exactly. You can see people can put that mask on there and they're smiling and they're happy and all, and you know, they play that game, but you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You know what I mean? Like you said, you know, you're training, whatever, you sit in your room and you're sniffing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that do exactly the same. They go home from work, they, you know, and whatever the problems they've got going on, and they don't let these problems out. And you know, a lot of people are scared to speak out because they feel embarrassed or whatever. But everyone's got to help one another. I think you're totally right, and I think a lot more can be done to, you know, don't judge people. Like you say, we judge, but sometimes, you know, take a little step back and say, "Are you okay there?" Or, you know, "Do you want to speak about something?" or whatever. And most of the time, people say, "Yeah, I'm fine," and whatever. But you might just get that one person who might just break down and say, "I'm not okay. I'm not okay."
And this is the, you know, unfortunately, people want to put down, they want to, you know, to try and make themselves feel better. But if you really want to try and make yourself feel better, help someone.
Yeah.
Right? Because that will really make you feel better, rather than being a you know, what do they call them, a couch warrior or a keyboard warrior, and typing it, like the comments and this, that. Really stop trying to put people down and try and help someone, and that's how you make yourself
a lot
feel
of
better.
people, you know, you do see that online and stuff, and you know, it's maybe stuff's not going so good in their lives and whatever, and I just never seem to get it. You know what I mean? When people, you know, are speaking about their stories, about their experiences in life, and you know, you don't know if that your story could help a member of their family or that individual. Do you know what I mean? But people are quick enough to jump down people's throats and go call them this and call them not nice things and stuff, and you know, sometimes it's not very nice what you see. Online's very good for a lot of things. Social media and stuff is good for a lot of things, but it can be bad for a lot of things
There's
as well.
a really good podcast online as well called The Good, The Bad, The Ugly.
No, I appreciate that, Nick.
But life's great now. You know, I'm married. We've been happily married for 2 years. I've actually been married for 10 to her, but I say 2 of them the first 2 were happy.
Yeah.
And 2 wonderful children, and yeah, life's very different. Very different. And I'm grateful for that.
Like you say, it's an old what's the name saying, and you know, as you get older, you sort of realise and you get wiser, and you know, you've certainly had a mad, unbelievable journey. You know what I'm saying, Nick? And sharing your experiences, I know for a fact that it'll help a lot of people when we put this episode out. And so, what's in the pipeline for Nick Conn?
Oh, who knows? There's always, right now, it's about trying to grow rehabs to really help as many as we can.
And how can people rehabs?
Yeah, so www.rehabs.com.
Yeah, we'll add that in the description also. We'll get that put in.
Thank you. Yeah, and help if you just need general advice and support. www.help and then the number 4 addiction.co.uk.
That's brilliant, mate. I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and you know, I think you're the first online
online rehab. It's incredible. It's incredible.
And you know, it's great to see what you're doing. You're helping so many people out there who obviously can't afford, you know, rehab, and you know, but the online stuff, you know, take a look and check yours out, and you know, get yourselves booked in, and if you're struggling and you're there to help and advise. And but Nick, I just want to say that was a very interesting and, you know, eye-opening podcast, and it's great to see where you're at now, considering what you've just discussed. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing the good, the
Thank
bad, and
you.
the ugly. Thank you very much,
Thank you
mate.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Really enjoyed it.